Right, Deuteronomy 19, let's call this one Purge because it's literally going to come up in the chapter at least twice, not in the pop culture sense or the movie franchise that talks about purging or having a period of time where you get to purge anybody or anything you're not fond of. In Israel, God is going to talk about the need to purge deception in at least two areas if Israel is going to move forward effectively as a nation. But before he's talking about purging deception, he's going to talk about mercy because it starts off talking about something we've seen before, and that's cities of refuge. For those who have committed unintentional killings, they have refuge cities, in at least 3 towns to begin with. And he says, if you do well, you'll have 3 more that the manslayer can run to. But once again, there is no refuge for the intentional murderer. And that's where the concept of deceptively kicks in, because the person who lies in wait for someone to kill them, again, has no refuge. And so that person has to be executed in order to purge the evil from Israel. The second area in which deception kicks in is in moving a property line, because these properties are inherited from generation to generation. The property lines aren't supposed to be moved, whether by agreement or by deception. And so he's saying, do not create artificial property lines, because the property lines are what they are throughout your generations. Third area is, in particular, a false witness, which literally almost implicates deception, because a false witness, apart from a person who simply makes a false statement that they would probably want to take back, is someone who is going to be held accountable for the very thing they intended to do to whoever they falsely accused. And so understand how that's not just a New Testament concept, because Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount is going to say, with the judgment we use, we will be judged. With the measure that we use, it'll be measured back to us. Paul is going to say something similar. He's going to say we have a potential of condemning ourselves with the judgment we use against others in Romans chapter 2. And so those are New Testament principles that relate back to this statement, which in a lot of ways goes back to a famous phrase we looked at before, because the legal standard here is life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, etc. That's what's supposed to happen to the false witness to the degree they intended it or knew it was potentially going to happen to the person who they falsely accused and sought to, in a lot of ways, convict. We get an idea of how this plays out in Israel later when in Ecclesiastes, the author, possibly Solomon, says, in roughly, I think it's chapter 8, because the sentence against the evil deed is not quickly executed, the hearts of people are fully set to do evil. And so understand this even in our world today. Jesus talked about a time in which hearts would grow cold because lawlessness would increase. And these are 2 principles I've talked about before. One, Jesus prophesying about the effect of lawlessness on our hearts and our ability to trust the people around us. But then also Solomon saying the reason why deterrence is so important is because it is a cure for that. And this is what Deuteronomy 19 will say in terms of giving the purpose behind the purge. In verse 18, it's going to say the judges shall inquire diligently, and if the witness is a false witness and has accused his brother falsely, then you shall do to him as he meant to do to his brother. So you shall purge the evil from your midst, and the rest shall hear and fear and never again commit any such evil among you. The whole point of this exercise in justice is to make sure that this thing never again happens. And understand, we've talked about to the degree we take God's counsel and water it down, we can expect watered down results. What he's saying is in this nation, they are only going to reach their potential if they have a never again attitude towards intentional deception. Likewise with us, we can be tempted, as Solomon has said, or as the writer of Ecclesiastes has said, to try to find the right mix of truth and deception that will pay off. But ultimately, what God is saying is not very different from what secular writers will say in terms of talking about organizations that are healthy have to have an environment in which candor is encouraged and deception isn't allowed to take root. That's not very different from what we're saying here. God is saying that if we are going to reach our potential, we have to have a never again attitude towards deception, understanding we all need forgiveness for mistakes and misstatements. But to the degree we're trying to find the right mix of truth and deception, especially insofar as it relates to false accusations, we can at best expect watered down results from God to the degree that we're genuinely trying to reach our potential, which is why we often say his best to you as you go forward in him.